and welcome to Two Words Wolves Pod. I'm Ryan Acton, and with me is Andrew Dukowitz from Zone Coverage. Andrew, how you doing?
Good, man. Missed my pod last night for the first time in over a year due to some flu-like symptoms, and now you get to hear the raspy voice of me on Two Words.
There you go. Well, my voice has been raspy the past week or so, and I'm coming out the other side, I guess. So now you're a few days behind me, but yeah, I mean, you cover the Lynx, you cover the Go for Women. Like maybe it's your body just telling you to take a single day off.
Nah, I think what the real reason it is Kyle Tyke sat next to me for like 45 minutes at one of the games this weekend, and that man is always sick and got me sick. So until further notice, it's Kyle's fault.
Well, that's fine. We can just blame Kyle for everything. That works. All right, but I guess we could talk about Wizards Wolves from last night at a it's been an interesting start of the season. In terms of like the Wolves providing us easy content to make, the schedule has made that difficult. I struggle to find any big picture good or bad takes to take from this first 15 games. I guess ultimately they're now 10-5 after beating the Wizards 120-109 last night. But they're 10-0 against below 500 teams, and they're 0-5 against above 500 teams. My default would just say that has more to do with small sample size more than anything else, and a combination of, well, yeah, the good teams are easier to beat, the bad teams are harder to beat. But yeah, Andrew, do you have any big picture takes about just kind of the season before we dive into this Wizards game?
Not a ton. I mean, I'm a pretty slow moving thought changer. Those are words. Like, I thought this team would probably be the 2 or 3 seed in the West before the season. They're 10-5. I mean, over the last 5 games, they have the number 2 defense in the league. Over the season, they have the number 4 offense in the league. Net rating, they're 5th. I mean, they're compiling together the statistics, at least, of a team that is going to be the 2nd or 3rd best team in the West, which, yes, at some point they will have to beat good teams to kind of maintain that moniker. But when you've only had to play 5 of them, you look at 2 of those games, Ant wasn't in. I mean, I'm more glad that they're beating up on the lesser teams in the league than I am upset that they're not beating the above 500 teams, because we're going to see a lot more opportunities with that. And I feel like we've had such a track record of this team that we know that they're going to eventually click it into gear and start winning those. But again, at least statistically, they're starting to put together the evidence that this is going to be another team that should make a deep playoff run.
Yeah, their main obstacle, I think, any big picture takes on the Wolves has far more to do with like Houston, Denver, and Oklahoma City than the Wolves themselves, I would probably say, because at least 15 games into the season, there's been 3 Western Conference teams that have been better than them. Houston's been better than them. Denver's been better than them, and OKC's been better than them. And that's both in terms of like net rating stuff and just pure record. Then add in the Lakers and Spurs, who also have had a more of a winning record, although I kind of would tend to agree with you that I still project the Wolves regular season wise to be above those teams, especially as Wemby's unfortunately going to miss a couple weeks. The Lakers, maybe I'm just regular season wise too low on the Lakers, because last season they outperformed their net rating and they're doing it again to start the season. So I don't know what that's about, but we'll certainly have the youth to regular season wise win a bunch of games, which I think, like you said about kind of being slow to move off an opinion, they haven't really given me any reason to change my preseason thoughts, which were this team's going to rattle off a bunch of regular season wins. They're going to win. I thought the 49.5 over under before the season was just is really low. I thought they're like almost their 25th percentile season would have been like 50 wins. I would have I thought their average season would be mid 50s, and I still kind of think that's, and what I've seen kind of supports that. Now, I also kind of felt like this team, the playoff ceiling to be able to beat Oklahoma City, I would have picked them preseason, and now really you probably should add Denver to that mix, even if I'm not discounting the matchup advantages the Wolves have there. I think Denver's just looked head and shoulders above pretty much everyone else besides Oklahoma. So like it's kind of widened. I'm even more, my gap between this team and my feelings between this team as the regular season and playoff team is, I think, even widened. It's really setting up for, I can see them individually beating Denver or like competing well with Oklahoma City, but as it's setting up, like I think if the playoffs started today, their path for the finals would be Houston, then Denver, then Oklahoma City, all on the road. Like that is, if that ends up being their path to a finals, they're just not gonna make the finals. And like that's the bigger thing, is like this team as currently constructed has to play better than they have.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's not even like a grand indictment of anything. It's just like a truth about where this team is at 15 games in.
I mean, I'd go one further. I don't see it's really hard for me to see a path for the Wolves to beat Oklahoma City if both teams are at full strength. Like you look at the Wolves, even with the development of Jaden McDaniels turning into this like third banana on offense, Dante playing really well since he busted his face. I mean, even if TJ were to come back and be good, Jalen continues shooting 40% from three. Like the Oklahoma City Thunder are probably the only team in the league that is like carbon copy built to beat this Wolves team over and over and over and over again. I mean, their third best wing defender on any given night is Alex Caruso. Like, that's insane. When you have J-Dub, you have Shea, who's probably their fourth best wing defender, and he's awesome. Dort. And then they have the interior players that can really give Gobert fits. I mean, if Gobert's having a really good game and they need to slow him down, they have Hartenstein to throw in there. And if Gobert is kind of a non-factor on offense, they have Chet that they can throw in there and spread the floor. I mean, the Shea stuff, I hear it every day on Twitter of just like, you know, his style of play is why Oklahoma City is so good. I honestly think it's this defense, and I don't see how the Wolves could crack that defense at all. I mean, we saw it last year where Caruso and Dort are on Julius Randle. They throw J-Dub on Ant, and then you have Shea guarding Jaden, which Shea is still probably about as good of a defender as Jaden is an offensive player. And then you have the other of Caruso or Dort free safetying. I don't know how the Wolves win this. Now, what I will say is, you know, this is something that I'm tentatively stealing from like the Bill Simmons podcast, but I actually really agree with it. Is just like when the Golden State Warriors were in their dynasty and they had Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Clay, and they were just rattling off wins. Houston always gave themselves a seat at the table because you're just one rolled ankle away from being a champion. And we honestly, it never worked out for Houston, but it worked out for Toronto that one year when they went all in for Kawhi, and then KD and Clay both go down injured, and Toronto has a championship. So I do respect the Wolves for putting chips in and getting a seat at that table to maybe win a championship, but I don't see a world right now where they could get past OKC. I do agree with you that Denver's a little bit closer. Like, I think that series would actually be like a really fun 6 or 7 game series. Houston, I think, would be a really fun series to watch. And I don't necessarily know who I would pick, but the gap between OKC and the Wolves is just, I mean, it's chasmous.
And the difference between, I still believe, like, the problem with the OKC Minnesota matchup is, like you said, it's not that they're a better team. It's that they match up well with the Wolves, with what the Wolves want to do. Where Denver is the opposite. Where Denver is on paper a better team than the Wolves, I still believe that the Wolves have matchup advantages over that team. Mm-hmm. Not to the same degree as they did 2 years ago when they beat them in the 7 games to reach the Western Conference Finals, but still enough that, like, even if the Nuggets are quote unquote better, you still like your chances. But to say it'd be 50% against the Nuggets would be a lie. It'd still be sub 50%. Even if, I mean, in a best case, like, whoever they get in the first round, the best win percentage is going to be like 60%.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how deep the West is. And so, even if, I mean, even just to do this, like, even if they were as good as everyone, to hit 3 coin flips in a row is 12.5%. Like, I just, it's a good example of that. If you base your enjoyment of the season on winning the championship or even making the finals, you're just going to be let down at the best 9 out of 10 seasons.
Well, look at the Wolves in general. I think I was on Wilder's podcast talking about it. Your entire opinion on the Anthony Edwards era of the Wolves is they need to win a championship or else they've squandered it. Like, you have Shea, who's probably going to end up being a top 100 player of all time when he's all said and done with his career. You have the end of the Curry run. You have the end of LeBron and the Lakers with Doncic, either in Dallas or LA. You have Jokic, who's probably going to be a top 3, top 5 player of all time. You have Wemby, who, I mean, we don't know what he's going to be yet, but that is going to be the entire back half of Ant's career. I mean, if Zion ever figures it out, that's just the Western Conference. Like, and like, then you go to the Eastern Conference. So if you can navigate all of those and get to the Eastern Conference, you still got to go through Tatum and Brown probably every single year, or Giannis if he doesn't get traded, which he might get traded to the West, or in a couple of years when Tyrese is back fully healthy. I mean, we're seeing how important he was to that Pacers team. I mean, I still think Anthony Edwards wins a championship in his career before it's all said and done, but like, to just say it's a given and set the over under at like 1.5 championships for Ant, I think is really discounting just how insanely deep this league is right now. Like, there really isn't, like, I mentioned Zion, right? And like, we can kind of scoff at Zion and like, oh gosh, but like, that's probably, even if you're a 1 or 2 seed, you're going up against Zion in the first round of the playoffs. And like, that guy has shown that when he's motivated, he can wreck an entire game plan. And then, like you were saying, then you go from there into Nuggets, Houston, Golden State Warriors with Clay and Jimmy Butler. That's just this year. I really think, you know, I'll reiterate that I still think Anthony Edwards is such a good talent that he will figure out a way to win a ring before it's all said and done. But like, it is so hard right now to do it.
Yep. I agree with everything you're saying, and I also kind of feel like the reason I bring this up is not to say it's impossible. I just think like that's the stakes for the rest of the regular season. It's not because I'll put this. I thought the Wolves could fight for the 2 seed. I don't think that that's probably likely anymore. Barring Jokic getting hurt, which he just never does, I think Denver's going to run away with that 2 seed, and Oklahoma City's, of course, going to run away with the 1 seed. And so if you're the 3, 4, 5, 6, I don't think it matters which one of those you are. If the ideal version of this regular season was the Wolves pushing Denver down to 3, and then probably even Houston coming up and pushing Denver down to 4, and OKC and Denver have to play in the second round. And all of that just feels unlikely. And so if Denver and OKC are going to be 1-2, and maybe that's even premature to say for Denver, but it doesn't really matter who your 3, 4, 5, 6 is. And just this regular season, I feel pretty confident about the Wolves being top 6, just because I'm not sure who currently below them is going to pass them. Maybe Golden State, but even there, I think there's the Golden State now has 3 more losses than the Wolves do. And even just, you could pick out teams above them like San Antonio. I would be surprised if the San Antonio Spurs, just with Wemby's health, finish with more regular season wins. But like I said, they have to play better than they have these first 15 games. But there's 67 games left? That's a lot of time. And if we just even think about last year, where the team was in mid-November, the 15th game of the season last year was a game in Toronto where Randle froze out Rudy, and then they took the automatic 3 second, Rudy on purpose took the 3 seconds. Like, just think about how far that team came into the playoffs. That's how much time there's left in the season.
They were 9-10 last year.
I believe 8-10.
8-10. Then yep. I mean, this team is light years away from where they were last year, and it's pretty much the same team.
Yeah, and what they're going to need to do is continue improving to get closer to that. Because, like, I'll tell you, the national view is not that the Wolves are on the Rockets level, and certainly not on the Nuggets level. That's where they're going to have to get to by the end of the regular season if if like a championship's hopes are this year. And again, they can have a successful season without winning a championship, but like I think just big picture stuff before we dive into the Wizards game is like for this core to come back next season, and by core I mean like basically like every single one of like the non-Ant Jaden pieces to come back, and Julius is probably part of that too. Like if they don't make a big trade this season, it's because by the end of the playoffs you say, okay, I can see a path of them beating OKC. I can see a path of them beating Denver. And right now, you can't see that. But I don't know. It's probably just premature to even talk about that 15 games into the season.
Yeah, I mean, what I'd add to that too is like the way this roster is constructed this season. I mean, let's just be honest. Like this trade deadline, I'm sorry to Wolves fan, but it's probably going to be really boring. Like Rudy is pretty much untradeable. I mean, every team in the league knows that it takes 2 years to get Rudy acclimated and ready to go on a team. No one's going to trade for him. I mean, Rudy is not going to be the centerpiece of a Ja Morant trade. Julius Randle is an all-NBA forward right now, getting paid $30 million. That guy is priceless. Like he is almost as untouchable can be. Jaden and Nas, I'd be shocked. I think Nas might be the guy, but then you look at how he's played the last 3 games and he's been looking pretty darn good. And obviously untouchable. I think the locker room would revolt if you trade Mike Conley. Like I know he gets thrown in a lot of trade simulators. I honestly think the locker room would fall apart if Papa Mike wasn't there. So that leaves you with like Dante, Rob, TJ, and Jalen. I mean, you're not getting anyone better than those 4 by aggregating 2 of them together to make a trade to get one guy. Like they're kind of stuck this year. Now this off season, maybe something else is different. Rudy will have a 1+1, like a 1 year left with a team option on his contract. Julius, maybe you're able to, separate the all NBA style plays playing this year with something else. Like this off season will be probably the off season. That was a lot of qualifiers. This off season will be the off season that if they make a trade with this current iteration, it'll happen. But for the rest of the season, they are who they are. I mean, even when you're looking at buyout markets, they have like a couple $1,000s in cap space between the first apron and the second apron. Like,
I believe they'd have plenty of space to take a buyout.
I thought let me they had less than enough. So I was under the interpretation they'd have to let go of one of the 2.
They have 3. They do have plenty of. It's 3.6 million.
Okay, good. So 3.6 million. They would be able to sign someone to the 3.1 or whatever it is on a buyout. So like maybe.
Yeah, but I believe it's also prorated. Like because you'd only pay half of that because it'd be half the season's worth of games.
So like maybe in that case you're getting, like we saw Kyle Anderson a lot in Utah. Like. Again, I don't think you're getting a guy in the buyout market that's going to vastly change the top 8 on this roster. So, like, the team's kind of stuck, and we're along for the ride as fans, writers, media members. Again, what I'll just keep going back to is, like, they're a twisted ankle away from being in the finals. Like, if they can just navigate through the playoffs and something happens with OKC, they're right there. And if they can't, my guess is, then maybe there is the Rudy trigger that gets pulled, or there is something else that happens. I'm kind of under the belief that Mike's probably done after this year, which that'll free some stuff up for him.
Yeah, and I think the biggest stylistic change that the team might eventually make is moving on from Rudy. They've already kind of moved on from Mike in terms of like starting lineup, and I think that's worked fine. But like the big thing is like, do you want to go in a dip? Because that trading Rudy changes what style team you are, and I just don't think you can trade that. I mean, a Rudy Gobert trade is complicated enough, but doing it midseason, I just think is impossible. Like he's so integral to what you do. Unless it's for like another, like a theoretical Anthony Davis trade, then there's like an on-ramp there. But even then, I mean, I'm not even saying that would necessarily be a good idea or whatever. I'm just saying like that would be the type of player where then you bring in another rim protector, but like the Wolves are 13th in defense. If you just swap Rudy for Anthony Davis, now you're below average defense. Or you really all of that still applies. So like trading Rudy just creates a ton of problems. So but I totally agree with you. Aside from a buyout guy, a trade like a couple years ago they traded for Monte Morris. That type of trade certainly obviously can happen and maybe should happen for the point guard position or the backup center position. One or both of those would make sense. But other than that, like, yeah, this is the top 8 guys or whatever they're not bringing in someone that's going to change that up. Maybe someone I don't know, like I said, around the margins move might happen, but like this is the team they got. And I don't think that's even a bad thing. That's just a reality in today's NBA. Like there's just not this level. There won't be many trades. I mean, this might be an active trade with like Anthony Davis might be on the market, John Morant, Lauri Markkanen, and like there are moves. I just don't think the Wolves are in position, like you said, to make any of those moves right now. But go ahead.
I just don't see how they could get to, like, if you're engaging in an Anthony Davis trade, Dallas is asking for Jaden or Julius, and like if you're giving up Jaden or Julius and keeping Rudy, like I don't know where that gets you. And same with like a Ja Morant trade. Like if you're giving up Jaden for Ja, no. I don't know where that gets you. So they're all of the like theoretical trades out there are just really tough to see where the Wolves would come into it. Again, I do think like Nas, if you went Nas, Reid, Dante, Rob, that gets your salary cap figure big enough to make a big trade for somebody. But then is that offer really moving the needle for Dallas or moving the needle for Utah or anyone like that? Like probably not. It's again, I was in the hopes that they would run this team back all offseason. I'm glad that they did because I feel like it is a fun team to watch. And I think, like we had talked about earlier, they're going to rattle off a ton of wins this year and they're giving themselves a chance. So I guess, this offseason will probably be the more fun one for people that are waiting for it to blow up. But to your point, even if they make a Rudy trade this offseason, like, that defense is going to need to be completely reworked because right now, I mean, the on-off stuff has gotten a little bit better with Rudy off, but like they were cataclysmically bad without Rudy for the first 10 games in the year.
Yep. And there's a couple reasons why it makes more sense for like an off-season trade, and we're probably just like way premature on all this. Yeah. So like I said, it's 3.56 second apron space. So they could sign a buyout guy and then maybe trade like Leonard Miller and a second round pick for another type of guy. Although they can't take back extra salary. So it's really tough. They're only adding extra. Mm-hmm. And what's really annoying is that all the trade machines, except for Spotrax, specifically ESPN's, don't know the rules.
Nope. ESPN's, if you're using ESPN's trade machine and it says that it can go through, it probably can't. Like, there's like, so many.
Unless you're trading between two non-luxury tax teams, then it works just fine. But the minute the ESPN's trade machine doesn't know how the aprons work, and nonetheless but as of right now, the Wolves have $23.3 million under the second apron, and that's on estimates based on what the luxury tax will be. Primarily, that's coming from, like you mentioned, Mike's $10 million coming off the books, and that's also assuming they pick up Rob's team option, which they will, Shannon's team option, which they will, and Leonard's team option, which they probably, I don't know, it's not worth speculating. They could decline it, but also it's also not that far from the minimum, and they have to fill out the rest of the roster with minimums, which I would say I agree with you that Mike is. I don't know if Mike will retire, but if he doesn't, they'll just sign him to a vet minimum. I would imagine
he'll just be back if he doesn't retire.
Right, I don't imagine him moving on, and I would guess the Wolves would gladly have him back if he still wants to play ball at a vet minimum. I would that would make sense for both sides. But so they have that extra salary space. They'll be under the luxury tax if even just briefly, which helps. They can now take back more money, which changes things. And then maybe the biggest thing is their 2033 first round pick gets unlocked. So they can trade that. They have a first round pick again to trade, which that would be the big thing. Like you talk about like trading for a potential Anthony Davis type thing. Like you're going to just need, if you don't want to include Jaden, which I wouldn't advise on trading Jaden for pretty much anyone except for pick your All-NBA player or whatever. You're going to need that pick. Probably would have liked to have the 2031 pick. I don't feel like rehashing the Rob Dillingham stuff. Another tough scoring game from him against the Wizards, but yeah. So I think we're on the same page that it's going to be the offseason and I still would put it as an if there's going to be a big move. But let's dive into the amazing, truly awe-inspiring 1-win Washington Wizards. They're now dead last in the NBA record, the only team with only the single win. Wolves beat them 120-109. It looked like it was going to be another just absolute blowout. The Wolves were up by, how much was it? Like 30 at halftime, 26 at halftime, something like that. And then the second half, it really was like kind of a throwback to previous performances from them against bad teams. I guess I have a little bit of hesitancy, like slamming them for that, given that they did have the big lead. If you flip the halves and the first half looks like this, I would be, I think, far more willing to just absolutely excoriate them for just being terrible. But ultimately, they had a fairly comfortable win. I did write down, so the second half, they get outscored 63-49. The 63 points probably stands out most to me. The defense was just not good enough. Wolves shot 17 of 40 from the field, including a stretch where they went 5 of 24, which is the main stretch where the lead got trimmed from 20 plus to 5. While the Wizards shot 25 of 43 and at one point made 9 shots in a row. And they probably had a turnover or two in there. But still, like, you just can't let the Washington Wizards hit 9 shots in a row, even if I go back and watch, well, that shot was actually contested, this shot was tough, or whatever. And then 3-pointers, which this probably kind of more lines up with your plain shot variants. Wolves shot 4 of 15 from 3, including a stretch of 1 of 12, and the Wizards made 9 of 17 from 3, including a 5 of 6 stretch. So what did you think of just the the second half? Are you more willing to crush them for this crappy play, or are you closer to me where it's just like, it's just hard to even, I mean, it's bad, but it's hard to really just crush them for anything.
I mean, they got the win. I think if they would have lost this one, I would have been pretty
sure.
salty about it. But like, it's the Wizards on a Wednesday night. I just can't bring myself to get super upset that they, squandered a lead, almost squandered a lead, and then they had to play a little bit harder. I think if there was something I would take from the game, it's just every game the Rob Dillingham stuff is getting more and more kind of alarming for me. Like, he's just not really doing anything particularly well right now, which that sucks, because I remember talking to you before the season of like, if Rob Dillingham is just good, like, that fixes a lot of problems for this team. And I think, for what it's worth, I think a lot of fans are starting to see why he didn't play very much last season, because I guarantee you he got better over the offseason, and he was in the Twin Cities the entire summer working on his game, and still is just struggling at kind of everything. I mean, the turnovers are still a problem. I brought up his shooting splits. He's shooting 29% on corner threes. He's shooting 27% on mid-range. He's shooting 45% in the paint. He's shooting 32.8 on jump shots. He's shooting 40% on floaters. Like, everything offensively for him is a struggle right now. And against a team like Washington, this is theoretically one of those games that they don't have the best perimeter defenders. I mean, he could have gotten a really good chance to show some things here. And I mean, the other thing I'll just say is like a lot of the Rob numbers are actually kind of inflated because in garbage time he usually does pretty good. So like that's the main thing that I took from the game is just it's just getting really hard to not talk about Rob just not being ready this season, which I will preface, he is 20 years old. If he is not ready this season, that is fine. Like sometimes it takes guys 3-4 years to develop. Sometimes guys have to go overseas and come back to develop. Sometimes guys need change of sceneries, more freedom, different coaching. Like all of that stuff is true. Like it is not an indictment of like Rob Dillingham's work ethic or Chris Finch or anything like that. But like it's really looking like he's not ready to be even like a ancillary piece on this roster.
Yeah, I would push back a little bit on that he's been bad in like every area. What I'll say is I kind of think he's been good at like keeping the ball moving. When he gets into the paint and someone recovers him, he makes the right pass. He's seeing the floor fine. But the one spot, and I guess with his defense, I think that's been fairly good the past couple games in terms of like getting steals, being ready, being energized. The size is always going to hold him back, but like the defense has been fine, given the expectations. But like what you said, the shooting is just broken. His shot right now is just, and I think I don't like just looking at it from basically from a TV viewer. I just think it's like it's something mentally is blocking him, and it's like the yips almost. It feels like because every jump shot is short. It feels like either that or just like way off. And he got a couple wide open looks from three. Just they weren't like there's. I think a lot of times you can tell like okay that didn't go in, but like it would have if you took it 3 more times it would have. And with Rob, it's just like that's just not even close. It feels like the 3-point line is too far away from him which I don't think is true because if you go back and watch his shot last year, his shooting is fine last year. So I just think it's time. Hopefully, Terrence Shannon Jr. is back soon, and it might be time to remove Rob from the rotation for a little bit because I'm kind of at the point where I don't think playing through his current struggles is really going to help him get through it.
I don't think so either. I completely agree with you. I think it's time for him to go like back on the bench and just kind of work himself back up from the ground up, which I mean it sucks when you got a lottery pick, but again, we played the Wizards last night. They had Johnny Davis as a lottery pick 3 years ago and he's out of the league now. So like these things do happen.
Yeah, and it's not even to like I really do, I promise you we don't need to relitigate. I don't need to relitigate the trade. Like in the offseason, we absolutely will. But like right now, it's just like objectively, he can't make a shot. Yeah. His offense is just because like I was just watching clips from last year, and he was sprinting to the bucket, making shots, and obviously there were highlights, so like there was plenty of blocked shots in between. But like, it just looked like a different player, and I don't know what the difference there is, because it just seems like some sort of yips or something like that. Because I don't know the offense. It's not even the offense. His scoring game right now is just absolutely busted, and I think it's a confidence issue. And to me, I mean, I guess as long as Shannon is out, I guess I would keep playing him just because you just have to at that point. I'm not sure who would play. I mean, I don't think I'm not all that thrilled with how Bones has played either, which again is fine. He's providing the role that they signed him to do, but yeah, it's been a tough start for Rob, and like you said, he's 20. So you don't want to like just completely give up on him, but it also highlights just how far away he is. But let's move on to someone who was also struggling, but has a better track record of rebounding from struggles. Anthony Edwards was very poor again last night, and him specifically, I thought was the best example of someone playing like they did in years past, where they just weren't engaged like they were against a bad team. And a lot of this is like classic Ant, where he has coming into the season, it was a clear point of focus to play better against bad teams, score more against bad teams, do all that stuff, defend better against bad teams. And the start of the season, he did that. And last night felt like the exact type of game that he's had against lesser teams his whole career. And what it would also be classic Ant is when they play the Kings next game, or on, what is that, Sunday, he's probably going to score a bunch of points and be awesome.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you don't want to overreact, because like the least thing I'm worried about is Ant's game right now. But it reminded me so much, and it is kind of coming through. It's now a 4-game long cold streak from him. He's made 28 of his last 77 field goals. Like, that's just not good enough. And then 3 for 30 on threes. Like, that's just that will come up, because I don't think the shot selection has been a problem from 3-point range, at least. I think some of the 2-pointers haven't been the best looks, but yeah. What did you see from Ant specifically last night against the Wizards?
Yeah, kind of like what you were saying. I think, is Ant going to flip a switch and be kind of a completely different psychological makeup this season, and now he's going to try against every bad team? Ideally, yes. That's what we would like to see. But I think Ant is one of the guys that when he sees a 1-win team lining up across from him, he's probably not as locked in. I don't know if the shooting woes are related to like not being locked in. I don't know if they're related to like, he is at home versus the road, which Finch has talked about a few times over the last few years, that like Anthony on the road, you can kind of structure his day and structure his life better than you can structure it when he's at home and left to his own devices and Xboxes and all of that fun stuff. Moral of it is like, he's got to kind of figure it out, because when Ant isn't playing average Ant level, this team is a team that can almost lose to the Wizards, which that's how most teams are when their superstars aren't playing like superstars. But I think they'll figure it out. I try not to put a ton of stock into it, just because he's still just such a young guy. And like, would any of us be surprised if he was up until 3-4 a.m. the night before playing Call of Duty, and like that was what he was doing before the Wizards game? Like, I guess I wouldn't.
Yeah, I'm going to quote a stat from Jace Frederick's column today. I advise people to go read it, and he tweeted this out. Ant has now back-to-back games playing 28 or more minutes, below 36% field goal percentage, 4 rebounds or less, 3 assists or less. So he's below all those numbers in back-to-back games. The number of times SGA, Jokic, Tatum, Giannis, and Luka had a game like that after their 24th birthday, none of them have ever had even a single one, and Ant's now done it in back-to-back games. Those are the players. If Ant, this is why this is important to me. If Ant is always going to be not as good, like a clear step behind SGA, Jokic, Tatum, Giannis, and Luka, the Wolves are never winning the title. That's just a fact. Until Ant gets on that type of level of player, the Wolves are always going to be half step behind OKC, half step behind Denver. That's just, I know it's reductive, but that's just true. And I'm not saying that this is just a microcosm of other parts of Ant's game that needs to get better. And like I said, anytime you criticize Ant, and Britt tweeted this out, anytime you criticize Ant, he'll make you look silly, because he'll do the exact thing you're complaining about him. But the big thing is, like, those 5 guys, and one of them's hurt this year in Tatum, but like those guys, and Giannis is on not a championship quality team, and Luka is, I don't know, take your pick on the Lakers. But if he's not going to be one of the 5 best players in the league and be just very clearly not as good as those guys, the Wolves have no flipping shot. They just don't. And he needs to be better than this. And like you said, they won. And that's kind of how I felt against, what was it, against the Kings?
Yeah.
Or no, who did they just play? Against the Mavs, the injured Mavs.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of felt like they were winning that game by so much for the whole thing. I kind of didn't
think about it.
Whatever. This one more felt like, just like, MVP quality players don't do this. And it doesn't mean he can't get there. I would expect he will. Mm-hmm. But like, it's just a good example of like what we kind of talked about at the top. The Wolves are not good enough right now, and it starts with their best player, and until it changes, it's hard seeing me like this team reaching super high heights.
Well, and to drive that home, I mean, the guys that you listed, I mean, Jokic is clearly and definitively better than Anthony Edwards. Shea is clearly and definitively better than Anthony Edwards. Giannis this season is averaging like what, a 35-point triple-double almost, like clearly definitively better than Anthony Edwards. And I would say Luka is still clearly and definitively better than Anthony Edwards. And Tatum, when healthy, that's the one that I think Ant is probably closest to, but like I would still take Tatum over Ant at this point. Not saying like, oh, well, Ant's younger, so you got to take like just 20 minutes, right? Like I'm taking Tatum over Ant. And like, you're 100% right. Like until Ant is in that realm where it's an actual conversation, like this team probably isn't winning a championship without help, meaning injury, or Julius becomes a top 10 player in the league, or Jaden starts scoring 26 a game and all of a sudden Jaden's Batman. Like there is a ceiling with where Ant is right now. And I do think, you know, Ant is such a unique star in this league because like there is a world where Ant figures it out by the time he hits 26 and we are having a Michael Jordan like run. There is also a world where Ant never really figures out certain things and maybe he wins one championship and that's it. I don't know which one it is, but you mentioned Britt. Like Ant will make you look silly. And I kind of anticipate the next time the Wolves come out, he's probably going to score 40 and look locked in every second. And he's going to be incredible. I think the one thing that Ant has that I think that he has maybe a little bit more in his like tank, like if you're Powerpuff Girling these people and you're adding sugar and spice and everything nice and all of that fun stuff, Ant just has like a give a shit factor that when it gets activated, I don't know if any of those other players can hit that realm. Like we've seen Ant just get pissed off and shut down Jaren Jackson Jr. We've seen Ant get pissed off and like demasculinate Luka Doncic. We've seen him just go blow for blow with Jokic and knock them out of a playoff series. It's just how can you get that give a shit activated all the time? He's like the Hulk, right? Like how do you get him to be in Hulk mode all the time without the like city leveling gamma radiation stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's two types of teams that win the title. There's we have the best player in the world team, and there's we have a super team, and not like the old Heat super team, but in terms of like 1 through 5, 1 through 6, 1 through 7, we're way more talented than you. The pieces fit all together, all that stuff. So, and I guess the third type of team is we have both, which OKC falls under from last year. And so like Boston is the second type. They were a super team. Obviously they had a close to an MVP candidate with Tatum, but they're closer. Like they had 5 All-Stars on their team basically. Yeah. The Denver and Golden State the years prior, where we have the best player on the planet. The Kawhi team with the Raptors is that super team type. They had like 5 starting caliber or all-star caliber players on their roster. Golden State with KD is both. LeBron with the Cat. Like every team, even like again the 04 Maverick or 04 Pistons are always the outlier. I would probably put them in that super team category, even if they are like the traditional outlier.
They have 3 Hall of Famers. I mean, I grew up watching that team. Like there is never really just like a little engine that could team that wins the championship. You know what I mean? Like that Pistons team had
it's the only one.
3 Hall of Famers.
The only one post 1980.
Billups was going insane. Tyshawn Prince was one of the best defensive players in the world. Like they were. Rip Hamilton could give you 25 a night. Like
that should be the Wolves title, by the way. Also, like
yeah,
that's the one. Is the Joe Smith is before that? Like if they, yeah, that's the, and if Sam Cassell doesn't get hurt, like that's that should be the Wolves title, and then it would have brought balance. Like there's no more championship outlier because like then the Wolves have the best player in the world or whatever. But yeah, they just need Ant to be better, and that was the big thing coming into the season. And we for most of the season he's been that type of first team All NBA player. But at least for a couple games, he just hasn't. And it, I guess for me, it brings into question: is he ready to hit that level yet? And like I already mentioned this, as I say that, it just he always makes you look silly for believing in that. But the tweet from Jason's column, I think is very important. Like these other MVP guys did not have nights like this, and it's important to kind of continue to monitor that. And it's like it's not that he has to put up 50 a night against the Wizards, but like they lose that game if not for Julius and Nas, who we'll talk about next. But like they lose that game if not for those guys, and it just kind of feels like we need more nights from Ant where it's like they don't win that game if not for Ant against injured or bad opponent.
The one thing I'll add is just like history would tell us, like Ant is not going to be at that level for another couple of years. I mean, it's really frustrating.
But like those guys were SGA, Jokic, Tatum. Those guys were, and that's my only point.
Yeah, which that's a fair point. Like when I look back on history, like Giannis won his first championship at like 25, I think, which is kind of absurd. Steph won his first at 26, which used to be kind of the breaker of the rule. Tatum won his first at 25 or 26. Like guys are winning their championships earlier, their first one. But like through the vast history of the NBA, it's been 27, which, you know, until Ant hits that age, like I'm still just kind of, you know, he's figuring it out, which hopefully by the time he hits age 27, we're talking about him actually figured it out and he's in that superstar persona, but we just don't know.
Yep, exactly. All right, let's move on to some happier times. The two guys that did play well last night, throw in Gobert. He was again solid against the Leicester team, but specifically Reid and Julius Randle combined for 60 points. Nas 28 points, 11 of 21 shooting, hit half of his 10 threes, and then Randle 32 points, 11 of 19, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. Those two basically carried them. They probably could have won. They could have sat Ant and not Rudy, but like they could have sat Ant and Mike and whoever else and played with the end of the bench, and those guys probably could have carried them. But Nas being back to his old self, I think, just should be the biggest takeaway from last night. Past 3 games, 23 points per game, hitting almost 59% of his shots, hitting more than half of his threes. I think like we all knew, and like I think everyone with the organization, the media, has been willing to give him time mentally to get back to where, and I'm gotta imagine he's still not in the grieving process to where he can be back to himself. But at least on the court, maybe it can provide a positive kind of reprieve instead of maybe negative reminders. It seems like he's at least mentally on the better side of that. I think he hasn't talked about, which wouldn't want him to or expect him to, but hasn't specifically said it in reference to the tragedy with his sister. But he has said he kind of feels like himself on the court again. I think that was after the Kings game, which I was not at, so maybe you can confirm that. But he just seems like he's back to the old Nas Reid, which they need that type of guy. They need that scoring punch off the bench. So that's been really good to see. And then obviously Randle just continues to kick butt.
I mean, Nas looks like Nas again, which that's probably the nicest way to put it. I mean, what I'll say is, I remember, I think it was before the first game of the year or the second game of the year, we got to talk to Ant at practice, and Ant, you know, asked him about Jaden and Nas, and he kind of said, you know, Nas is still like working himself into game shape because he was away from the team, which like rightfully so, he was away from the team. Like that's a good reason to be away from the team, like grieving the loss of your sister. Maybe you just need to get into like game shape, which that's exceptionally hard to do when you're playing yourself into shape. I mean, look at Luka the last like 5 years of his career. When the first 2 months of the season, he's human. Like maybe that's all it was Nas just wasn't 100% in shape. Maybe it is a mental thing. I tend to be of the belief that like I'd be shocked if there wasn't anything mentally going on just over the last 2 months that he's had. On Julius, like I feel like at least 15 games in now we can say Julius Randle is probably the second all-star on this team. Like he's putting together like an all NBA case. That guy has been unbelievable this year and seems like he's just picked up exactly where he left off last season. I mean, he is just every night bringing it. The defense sometimes can still be a little annoying. I think that's just a quirk of Randall's game where he's going to miss somebody on a back cut or he's not going to body someone or just like it is what it is. But like offensively, he has been phenomenal from a rebounding standpoint. He looks way more engaged on that end. And like for the people that are kind of pleading for the Wolves to go get a point guard, like I don't know, the offense is running really well through Julius Randle. So I would hate to mess that up by bringing in a point guard.
Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of, I don't really want to talk about the Ja Morant stuff, but that's always been, even setting aside the whatever personality you think you're trading for there, that would be my biggest thing with like trading for that arc of players that like they need the ball in Randall's hands. And I don't think the fit would, I like the idea of trading for Ja in the sense of like trading low on an asset that doesn't seem, might not be properly valued. But I just don't like, given the risk, you just have to be certain that it's going to be a fit for your team. And like you said, they need the ball in Randall's hands. Right now, I think they have a good solid mix of like guys that succeed on the ball, off the ball, and like a Jalen Clark type, which is like almost more just like the offense is. It's not to criticize him, but like the offense runs well when the ball doesn't end up his hands or is only part of his hands when it's like swing or whatever. Or I mean, he continues to knock down 3-point shots, which I just think
Jalen Clark might just be a 40% 3-point shooter. He might just be.
I'm still a little hesitant on that, but like, I don't know, the sample size is still so tiny that being either skeptical or bullish, I think both are not fair yet. So, but I think they have a good mix of, I just kind of scrolled through, the Wolves have scored at least 110 points in every single game. Even games where, I mean, that can often be as much about pace than it is about anything else. But the offense just looks phenomenal.
Gobert playing big minutes is a top 5 offensive rating team in the NBA. That is wild. Like, that's the stat I keep coming back to, is like, this offense is so good that Rudy Gobert is on a top 5 offensive rating team. Like, you're doing everything right if that's the case.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think the offense, I mean, there's been stretches where it's been like, Rudy's the problem offensively here, but I think they've been doing a good job of passing in the ball, making sure he's involved. The number of he had 4 turnovers last night. I thought like at minimum 2 were not his fault.
Sure.
In terms of like just, he happens to get awarded the turnover, but it's like, yeah, because he caught the ball. Like if he let the ball go through his hands, which would for any like in the what the play happened would have happened, he doesn't get the turnover the passer does, but he caught it and then immediately got it stolen. It's like, yeah, because it was a bad pass.
I think the only game I felt Rudy was really detrimental in offensively was that Denver game. I just, like, 4 turnovers in the first 5 minutes, he just looked way too gassed up. But, like, other than that, he's been awesome. And again, we're compiling enough numbers now to where like stat nerds like me can sit here and say like, listen, 15 games is like an actual sample size. Like this is, the Wolves very well could be like a top 5 offense, top 5 defense. And that's a top 5 offense with Rudy Gobert and a top 5 defense with Julius Randle. Neither of those should make sense.
I don't think the defense will get to top 5. Top 10 it's 13th now. I think it'll get top 10. They iron out some of the non-Rudy minutes, but I kind of think top 5 they won't quite get there. But even top, like, I would argue you got to be minimum top 10 in both.
Yep.
But like, you probably have to be top 5 in one and top 10 in the other. And the Wolves, I would bet, are going to finish that way. They'll have the 4th or 5th offense and like the 9th or 10th defense, and that'll OKC will outrank them just because of their crazy defense and maybe even offense too. But that's the baseline for like the team wide stuff. Is you got to be top 10 in both, top 5 ideally in one of them. And like you said, even with Rudy Gobert on the court, the offense hasn't been this like major slowdown point, which we've seen many times throughout the season.
For all of the years for the year and a half you've had the podcast and we've been yelling about hitting Rudy in the short roll, people are finally hitting Rudy in the short roll.
Yeah, and I guess the only caveat there is it's come against bad teams and not against good teams. Yeah. And so we're gonna need to see it against the good teams, or even the like Friday against a solid enough Phoenix team, or at least that's what they've shown through 15 of their own games. Yeah, I guess that's the last thing we'll talk about. Friday against Phoenix, it's again above 500 team.
Yep.
Although you beat them and they lose one more game and they're right back below 500, which is kind of like the Portland win. Kind of reminds me of that. Like, okay, but like anytime you beat a 500 team, now you're adding like you're causing it yourself. Whatever. But it's also an NBA Cup game. If they win the game, they pretty much clinch. Just because they beat Utah by 40, they're going to be so. The only way would be losing to OKC by like 30 plus, but. Yeah, if they beat Phoenix, they're going to clinch. It's not a good thing. Not really. Whatever. But it'll be fun, and I just think playing a half-decent team with actual stakes beyond just the regular season game attached, I think will be fun and hopefully telling.
I mean, Jaden McDaniels is going to play against Devin Booker. That's must-watch TV.
Well, he might not play. I mean, I haven't seen an injury report. No, Jaden.
Oh, yeah, Jaden missed last night. Oh, gosh. I've been in a time warp. If I get robbed of a Jaden McDaniels Devin Booker game, tentatively,
yeah, that's tough.
Bleacher Report has Jaden out for Friday night's game. So we shall see.
Yeah, they I wasn't there last night, but they what was tweeted out was they don't really have a timetable for him yet, and they don't believe. They said they also there's no major damage, so it's not like he's gonna be out more than a few games, but I think he's got some sort of reaction to a wrist, something in his wrist that they need to get better before they play him. It wasn't just when he first got ruled out, you're like, yeah, well, it's against the Wizards. No, he's got a thing going on. So I guess we'll probably get an update in a couple hours to see if they'll probably just get labeled questionable and they'll decide tomorrow. But yeah, it'll be at least a half-decent game against a non-tanking opponent.
Yeah, I mean, even looking at the Suns, like, I'm going to be honest, I haven't watched a ton of Suns basketball this year. They're not one of my favorite teams to watch. I just not up there, but they've been fine. Jalen Green's been playing pretty well in his new role. Booker's, an all NBA caliber player. It'll be nice to see them, even without Jaden McDaniels and his antics, it'll be nice to see them play another good team before they go back and, go back to beating up on bad teams. But I will say, like, the NBA Cup thing, I think, is getting rightfully so, like, attention, right? Like, I do think players, Ant said it best, like, right? Like, I want to win it, but I have no clue what's going on with it, or something to that effect. Like, I think it's done its job. Like, I do think players want to go to Vegas in November. I do think players want to, like, go and try to win some extra money and be on, like, the stage and say they won something. I do think they could have simplified it a little bit, because I don't think very many players really understand what's going on.
Yeah, and probably fans do too. Ultimately, I think it's once it gets to the bracket round, I think it makes sense. I would probably say, like, the number of bad teams in your bracket play such a big role on, like, the minute the thing came out, I was like, well, the Wolves are probably going to make it, because if they just simply beat up on Utah, Sacramento, and Phoenix, they don't even have to beat OKC. They'll have a big enough point differential, which is exactly how it's played out. But I guess we'll see. They still have to go and beat Phoenix, which on the road potentially without Jaden is not a gimme. But Andrew, anything to plug between your your pod stuff and zone coverage.
Oh gosh, writing is all over on zonecoverage.com. I have articles that come out every Wednesday and Saturday usually. Nothing from me this week because I've been dying with the flu, not literally, but just emotionally and figuratively. I do host a post-game live stream for the Lynx and the Wolves called the Missing Wolves or Missing Lynx, depending on what team you're looking for. And we have Andrew Carlson from Canis Hoopus coming up after the Phoenix game.
Hey-o.
On that one. What else am I doing? I think that's all I know. I think that's all I have to plug. Go follow me on social, adukemn, anywhere you get social media feeds. I'm pretty much on all of them now.
Perfect. Well, thank you for coming on. We'll see you down the line later in this season, like we did last year. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Go Wolves.